Trades Union Council. I want to welcome you all here to our workers' hustings. And as a group of trade unions representing 20,000 workers across this constituency, we felt it was important to organise a hustings event for local workers, giving a voice to working class people who are facing the worst effects of inequality, the cost of living crisis, and who, if in employment, are working longer in order to meet living standards. The hustings is about engaging with people, with the candidates, but it's also about encouraging people to vote. And it's right that trade unions and workers play an active role in this election. So the format tonight will be each of the candidates will begin, they've been allocated 3 minutes to inform us why a vote for them will improve the livelihoods of workers. And following that, each candidate who has been given a question in advance of the night's hustings will answer the question, and the question that each candidate will be answering will be on the screen behind as they're speaking. And then finally, there'll be an open mic session for anybody in the audience who wants to ask a question of any of the candidates. So I want to thank all the candidates who are here. It's important that they are here, and a number of them have been very supportive of trade unions and workers. They've been on picket lines, they've attended events before that we've organised, and I thank them for coming again tonight. So I think, Mark, you've got the first question, so if you want to come up, and it's in order of whatever question you received from us is whenever you're doing your introduction. So Mark's first, and then whoever the second question comes next, etc. Thank you.
Thank you, Niall. Thanks to everyone for giving up your evening to come along. This is an important event, and I'm glad to be able to turn up to it this evening to, I suppose, use the platform to engage with you guys, but also to hear about your concerns and hear what you'd like us to be doing for you. I think it's vitally important that people do come out to vote in this election, that they come out to vote for parties that actually want this place to work, and parties that are prepared, willing and able to work together to make this place work for you. And I think it's fair to say that for the past 15 years, undoubtedly people will say for longer, but for the past 15 years, with the DUP and Sinn Fein at the head of government here, it hasn't worked. It hasn't really worked too well for anyone. When the SDLP is strong, we have progress. We've seen that over the years, and I hope we can see it again. Currently, from the executive, at the head of the executive, we've had plenty of drama, plenty of dysfunction, but not a wild pile in the way of delivery. That's why, like I say, it is important people come out and vote for those parties that actually want this place to work. It's a PR election. I'm not naive enough to think I'm going to be, or we're going to be everyone's number one. But go right down the ballot, vote for the least worst first, and make sure to leave the worst to last. Because even your vote 8 or 9 could make a difference in not just who's in the Assembly, but even more importantly, who's in the seats around the executive table. And I believe this election offers a real opportunity for the SDLP to make gains in various constituencies, to go back with more MLAs and to get another minister. And why wouldn't workers want another minister in the executive from the SDLP? A party that has always stood up for workers' rights, a party that has joined workers on picket lines, a party that goes through the lobbies to vote for protections for workers and to vote against attacks on workers, be it in Westminster or Stormont. The SDLP have always done that. The SDLP have always been a party that looks for solutions. We don't claim to have all the solutions on our own. I don't think anyone does, but that demonstrates the value of being able to collaborate with others. And boy, do we need solutions. We found solutions to the conflict here, and now we have to find solutions to the other crises that are involved in society. We need an executive that's truly committed to tackling poverty. We need an executive that's truly committed to tackling the crisis in our healthcare. And crisis is a word that's bandied about, but I'm not prone to hyperbole. So when I say it, I mean it. We need a party that puts education as a priority. The SDLP will do all those things. We need a party that actually cares, or more executive ministers that actually care about Derry and the Northwest, that for so long has suffered neglect. We currently are in our outgoing executive, we've had one minister, and she has delivered for the Northwest. Maybe not as quickly as some people would like, but she has put plans, rail plans, back on track. No one can dispute that. We want to get it faster. She's launched an all-island feasibility study for rail that now includes Derry, when her department had typically overlooked that in the initial draft, but Nicola got it back in. She's invested in an electric bus fleet for the city. So I think we've put our money where our mouth is when we have had a ministerial seat, that's for sure. Give us another one and we can do more.
So next up we have Ciara Ferguson, Sinn Fein.
So welcome everyone, and can I thank the Derry Trades Council for inviting me along today. This is my first of a Hustings event like this, so I'm really delighted to be with everyone here today across the city and with ones that have travelled from afar. Obviously Sinn Fein, as a candidate for Sinn Fein and my colleague Padraig Delarky, obviously we stand up for workers and families and we'll put money back in people's pockets. That's what we're here to do, and we're ready to roll up our sleeves. We're well aware, obviously, I don't need to repeat, that the DUP did walk away from the executive despite the fact that there was over £300 million that we could utilise all other progressive parties to try and support our workers and our families. We know, obviously, who has held the Department of Economy over the last 10 years. Once again, DUP, they have failed workers to date. And obviously, we want to ensure that they should all, as a collective, be advancing workers' rights. Because we're here tonight as for workers. During the DUP tenure, we have constantly had the lowest wages in the economy. I've worked in the community and voluntary sector, so I know for the last 21 years, so I know quite clearly, obviously, the salaries and the wages and the undervalue of our poor frontline workers and what they need. We need, as we know, to secure employment, have decent pay and conditions, and it's the foundation of sustainable, productive economy and a prosperous city and region. In relation to the last mandate, you're well aware, obviously, Sinn Fein ourselves, obviously that's why we signed up and brought forward legislation to ban zero-hour contracts. Sinn Fein done that. We also supported a range of really good legislation. The last 6 or 7 months, you will all be familiar with a lot of legislation that went through by progressive parties working together. We supported the parental leave bill, the domestic abuse leave bill, we supported the trade union bill, and it is our party policy as well to reduce the threshold with regard to that requires workers at thresholds of 20 to encourage all workers to be able to join a trade union movement and protect them from dismissal no matter how long they're out on the streets and they have to protest against their wages.
1 minute.
I suppose just at this stage of the game, obviously, during the next election, Sinn Féin will support workers further. We want to devolve powers to set the minimum wage and replace it with the real living wage. Conor Murphy has done it in the Department of Finance. Come June of this year, the $3 billion that's spent in public service contracts currently, any private contractor developer must ensure that they deliver the real living wage to their workers. We want to end the fire and rehire tactics. We want to remove the restrictions on trade union recognition in the workplace for 20 workers or over. My colleague Padraig Delarky here in the city is already developing of their private members bill. We want to ensure there is paid leave for carers. And of course, as a mother of 3 kids and 2 grandkids, we need to ensure the implementation of the childcare strategy, particularly for a woman in this city. Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Emma Doyle, Aontu.
I was going to start on a nice tone, but there must be another Sinn Fein out there that I'm not aware of. This election is about a choice. It's about a choice of looking over the last 20 years of parties who've been in the executive, who have lied about the source of where workers will be able to get a higher income, they've sent back to London £1.1 billion over the last 10 years that could have paid for all of the pay uplifts for nurses, for police officers, and for bus drivers who will be going on strike in the next couple of weeks. The public sector pay policy that is set by Conor Murphy is one that keeps workers down, because it says that the other executive parties who are not in unison at all, who want to fight amongst each other for the scraps from London's table, that we will give you 1 or 2%. If you want to find the rest for nurses, you have to find it yourself. That isn't a credible response to what is now an absolute crisis in terms of people's incomes. We talk about things that have happened over the last 20 years, and all the parties are guilty of it. All of them want to blame other people, but the fact of the matter is, whenever I go to people's doors now, and especially for public sector workers, they have had a real term pay cut over the last number of years. The only reason why the executive parties are back in Stormont after being paid for 3 years for not going to their work, which normal workers would never get the opportunity for, is because workers drag them back. Now, when we talk about the division at the heart of the executive and of Stormont, and I don't think Mark meant it this way, and I'm sure a lot of people didn't think it this way, but it hit the nail on the head. Parties are interested in power. They're not interested, and they won't be interested come May the 6th. What happens? The teachers who, for example, are looking and balloting for strike action at the minute, they won't be looking at implementing a living wage. How do we know that? Because they've had 20 years to do it and they didn't.
1 minute.
What this executive and what Stormont needs is a fresh, new voice that will hold them to account. Not simply allow them to brush under the carpet their failures over the last 20 years because they all scratch one another's back. The only people who are failing to stand up for workers are the people who are supposed to be their primary voice in Stormont over the last 20 years. That isn't going to change unless people change it. You vote, you get what you vote for, and if people are going to vote for these parties in the next executive, they can certainly count on the fact that what they've got is exactly what they're going to get in the future.
Next up we have Sean Harkin, People Before Profit.
Well, first of all, thank you to the Derry Trade Union Council for organising the Hustings and inviting me along. Obviously I'm here as a People Before Profit representative, but I'm also a trade unionist. And I think that this election is about this hardship crisis. This election is about the cost of living crisis. I think every single party, no matter what they want this election to be about, has been forced to discuss this cost of living crisis. This is a real crisis for working class people. It doesn't matter what your background is, it doesn't matter where you come from, it doesn't matter which side of the bridge in this city you live on. Working class people are being crushed into the ground right now because of rising costs, pay cuts, and everything else that's happened over the last year. I believe that the response from the executive over the last year has been absolutely disgraceful. Everything that they've been done has been last minute and too little, too late. And the evidence is go out and talk to people. People on benefits got £200, which was welcome, but was it anywhere near enough? Absolutely not. Because it's £1,000 to £2,000. That's the increase in costs that people are experiencing. I think that the executive parties should be absolutely ashamed of the fact that worker after worker is balloting right now for strike action. I mean, the foil port workers were forced out for a strike to get a 2% pay increase. What a disgrace that is. And we see council workers out and they're going out again. We see TransLink workers being forced out to strike. We see healthcare and social workers being forced out to I think absolutely shafted last year when the 5 executive parties imposed a Tory 3% real terms pay cut. So there's example after example of where workers have been absolutely failed by this executive, and I think that that's this election has to be about. People Before Profit, as you know, are a party that thinks the biggest division in our society is between the elites and the vast majority of the rest. And the elites are doing well. This is not a hardship crisis for everybody. It's not a hardship crisis if you're politically connected. It's not a hardship crisis if you're a CEO of a Capita Corporation. It's not a hardship crisis for the people at Runway Park. This is a hardship crisis for working class people. And I'm not going to stand up here and make big promises about everything that people before profit's going to do. What we will be is we will amplify the struggles that are already happening around our society. We will be a voice in Stormont that stands up for workers, stands up for people, and brings them proposals that the executive parties will not even consider, because these are the kind of proposals that will challenge the business as usual or Tory approach to doing business. We've had 20 years of privatisation. We have 5 executive parties who prioritise lobbying for tax cuts for corporations who are making millions and sucking profits out of working class communities. We have 5 executive parties that has voted for 12 years and longer now for pay cuts for healthcare workers and every other public sector worker. Every promise that they're making right now cannot be trusted. The only way that we're going to win those changes is when we take action through protests, through strikes, and through building a mass movement for social change. Thank you.
Next up, we have Anne McCluskey, Independent.
Always have to put the microphone down. Hello everybody. Again, my thanks to Niall and to Derry Trades Council for inviting us along here tonight to have this little conversation. As some of you may be aware, over the past 2 years, I have travelled this country, north, south, east and west, and England and Scotland, advocating for the rights of workers and of human beings, of our children. I have steadfastly opposed the narrative which has made billionaires immensely richer, cheered on by the very politicians who are sitting here talking about being on the side of the people. We have seen our people stripped of their basic and inalienable rights to travel, to associate, to live their lives, and yes, to work. We have seen the softening up of our economy. To talk about this cost of living crisis, this was done on purpose. We are witnessing the dismantling of a civilization. We are witnessing the deliberate hollowing out of the economy to soften it up for the imposition, and there's books written about it. Have you read Klaus Schwab's book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution, COVID-19 and the Great Reset? The vaccinations, the injectable genetic therapy, which are in clinical trials for another year. I said in August of 2020 in the Guildhall Square in Derry, that these were to provide a digital identity so that people could be chipped and pinned for their central bank digital currency. And all this talk about universal basic income is simply softening people up for what is going to be totalitarian, technocratic government control. Stormont can't fix this. Do you seriously think, even like we talk about Boris Johnson is not in charge.
1 minute.
What are in charge are a very small conglomerate of immensely rich, deranged psychopaths who own the world, who own the banks. People think that the banks are some sort of autonomous servants of the people. The banks rule the world, and for anybody to pretend that as a politician they can change anything, it's ludicrous. We need to build structures outside of the current ones. We need to, first of all, educate our people who have been psychologically damaged by the relationship with their government. We saw the carrot and stick approach where people were abused and then given a few crumbs off the table. We need to understand that what is happening is going to be serfdom for the workers. Serfdom for the workers and serfdom for the small business owners. We've seen it. How many businesses in Derry have closed over the past 2 years, never to open again? This is all done on purpose. I will be your voice. I will be your voice to tear apart the narrative. The other thing I wanted to say very briefly is you must understand that Sinn Fein, the SDLP and the DUP have sold off 25% of the landmass of the north of Ireland for mining, for minerals, and probably for a nuclear waste disposal facility. So that's where Boris's bridge is from. They will be taking their nuclear waste and putting it in our beautiful island. On these people's watch. think very carefully who you vote for on the 5th of May, because we need to waken up. Otherwise, there's no way back from this horror that is being prepared for us. Thank you.